Hey, fourth graders. Today we are going to continue talking about poetry, and we're going to be reading another poem closely using figurative language. So we talked about alliteration, which is the repetition of the beginning consonant sounds and words, and we saw a lot of alliteration in the poem The Brook. Which talked about how a brook started and it went down to the river, and about how it kind of curved and went over mountains and went past fields and kind of went fast sometimes and slow sometimes. We heard it talked, the words painted a picture for us visually, which is imagery. If we look at the bottom term here, it creates a picture in the reader's mind. And also it kind of appeals to our senses in that it talks about it babbling and the noises it makes as it kind of moves down this mountain and down into the river past, the hills and all these different places. We also talked about similes and metaphors, more specifically in writing, and there were similes and metaphors in both the poem The Brook as well as The Swing, right? We did The Swing yesterday, and The Swing talked about how this child gets on the swing and it goes back and forth, and as they go down, they see this brown roof, and as they go back up, they can see the beautiful countryside, and they see everything as in the blue sky. So similes are a comparison of two unlike things using like or as. So like her hair was like the sun, or her hair was golden like the sun. The kitten's tail was soft like a cotton ball, using the words like or as. And then we have a metaphor, which is comparing two things, but they don't use the words like or as. So her hair was the sun. The kitten was a cotton ball, or is a cotton ball. So not using those words to compare those things. And, poets use alliteration and simile and metaphor and imagery to get the reader involved in what they're reading. So what we're going to read today is we're going to read this poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay. So I'm going to go and read it the first time, and then I'm going to make it smaller, and I'm going to kind of annotate it, which means draw on it to show you what I mean. So for the first time, I'm going to read through it. It's Nothing Gold Can Stay, and it's by Robert Frost. He's a super famous poet. And when I'm reading, I just want you to pay attention to my rhythm and how I'm reading it, because at commas, I'll pause. At periods, I'll give a longer pause. And we have these things called semicolons here. I'm going to pause. And so when you have a comma, it's saying that the two lines, this line and this line, kind of work together, but it's saying pause because I want this rhythm to this poem. And this poem is very short, but it is full of meaning. And you'll see what I mean. The second time I read it, right? We read things 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 times. So Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief, so dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. So I'm going to make this smaller so I can annotate it or draw on it with you guys. So the poem title is Nothing Gold Can Stay. And so we know gold as being really like permanent, right? We have something gold and it's like hard and it's metal, but the poem kind of contradicts or goes back to this. So my guess is that gold, if gold is not staying, right, it's saying something is temporary, and it's comparing something to gold. I don't know if it's gold, but it's comparing something to gold, right? So we're talking about metaphor here because there's no using like or as, but gold is being compared to something. So nature's first green is gold. So I'm going to kind of go through this, and nature's first green is actually a metaphor for something. And whether you know this or not, nature's first green, if you think about what nature's first green is, it is actually what we call spring. So the first time things change and the seasons change, and the season that everything starts to grow and turn green is spring. So nature's first green is actually a metaphor for spring. The first green means spring, okay? And then nature's first green is gold. So, and I'm actually going to under nature's first green like that is gold. So what does this mean? Well, things that come out aren't gold in spring, they're green. But I want to think about what gold is symbolic for. And what I do know what gold is symbolic for, it is symbolic for riches, and it's symbolic. Gold is symbolic for beauty. So if I think about this poem and nature's first green is gold, it kind of actually does make sense. It's saying that spring and this beauty and this and of all these things of green and the whole nature opening up is beautiful. So gold is actually a metaphor for beauty. So nature's first green is gold, is saying spring is beautiful. So we're going to go down to the next line. It says her hardest hue to hold. So her, first of all, we're starting to see her in here. So her is actually personifying spring. It's making spring a her or a person. So it's giving, that her is giving spring human-like qualities. And so it's making a spring a she. So this is personification of the her. But let's go back to that line that I was starting to talk about. It says her hardest hue to hold. So hue is color. So it's that hardest hue is referring to the green, the hardest hue to hold. So that green is hard to hold or hard to stay. That green doesn't stay. It's very temporary. And I see, so this green is hard to hold. It's not going to stay forever. And we know that the seasons change, and it is actually very similar to nothing gold can stay. It's a hard hue to hold. So the green is not going to stay, okay? Her early leaves a flower. So anybody who has seen spring knows that when trees bud, they bud into flowers and then they change either into fruit or leaves. So her spring is her. Her first thing coming out is a flower, which again, flower means beauty, but only so an hour. And so flowers last for a short time and then they turn to leaves, right? So they're very temporary. They don't last forever. So leaves of flower is symbolizing this beauty of this newness and this kind of coming out of spring, but it only lasts for a short time. Then leaf subsides to leaf, right? So the flower goes leaf to leaf. And so Eden sank to grief. Now this one's harder. So sank to grief is again a personification. Sinking to grief would be, grief is a sad feeling. So it's giving a human-like quality to this thing called Eden. And what is Eden? So Eden is a term to kind of show the beginning of everything, the beginning of all nature, the beginning of the world. And it was a belief like a really long time ago that Eden was like this beautiful beginning place of beauty and nature and everything else. So the leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So this beginning, once the leaf goes to a leaf and it sort of changes to nothing, then Eden, or this beginning of beauty, gets sad and goes away. And then our next two lines say, dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. So dawn is that perfect time of the morning where that sun rises and that where the sky is that beautiful orange and pink and green, and it lasts only but a few minutes. So dawn is one of the most beautiful times if you see sunrise of the day. And it says dawn goes down to day because dawn changes to day. Dawn doesn't last forever. Nothing gold can stay. So we repeat, right? There's the repetition of that title of that poem. And so if we go in and we look, nature's first green is gold, the hardest hue to hold. So it's saying that this green doesn't last forever. Her early leaves a flower, but only for an hour. Beauty again. Flower symbolizes beauty again, but it only lasts for a short time. The flowers don't last forever. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So the leaf changing to a leaf only lasts a short time. And so dawn goes down to day, dawn changes to day, nothing gold can stay. So this is really talking about like all these things of beauty only stay for so long. Beauty can only stay for so long. And so it's not forever. It's a very temporary thing. So we're going to go to the next pages because these are the pages you're going to do. It says, what do you think the title means? We talked about that. What situation is described? So what did we talk about in this poem? What are your first impressions of the poem? So remember, you're going to restate the question. My first impression is, and then we have reading to close reading. What is the message in the poem? What word choice helps brings Frost's subject to life, right? What personification brings it to life? What is the rhyme scheme? I didn't go over the rhyme in here. So look where those things are rhyming and you're going to put the rhyming words and then find an example of alliteration, right? We talked about alliteration is those beginning consonant sounds. We're going to go to the next page. The metaphor for nature's first green is gold. What is the meaning? What is it a metaphor for? Her hardest hue to hold. What is the meaning? What is the metaphor for it? We went over that. Her early leaves of flower, but only for an hour. What is the metaphor for that? And then we have analysis. What is the theme of nothing gold can stay? How does Frost convey his message in this poem? Remember, when we did our historical fiction, when we did our fiction, we talked about theme. Theme also applies to poetry. What lesson do you think that the author is trying to teach us? And I've mentioned some things earlier. So I'm going to tell you, you need to use evidence from the text. So you need to take a line from the text and explain what it means and how it relates to your theme. So your analysis should be at least 5 sentences because you would start it in the poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. The author's message or theme is, and then you're going to say what it is, and you're going to say, I see evidence in this theme by the line or by the author talking about flowers changing or whatever your theme is being illustrated by, and your evidence has to show that. So you guys are going to reread this poem. You're going to do the questions. And I want to remind you, we talked about alliteration, simile, metaphor, imagery, and we kind of talked about theme here and the message the poem's giving you. All right, guys. Well, get to work. See you later.